And actually, I found it fascinating because one of the things that you do in your book is take all of the different myths, and I'll give you a chance to talk about some of your favorite ones, and really coalesce them into, a handy-dandy reference guide. Where, you might know like this little piece or that little piece, but you got very specific. And I think the one that was my favorite piece was that because you list like different attributes that they have. And I think my favorite attribute that I saw in just about everyone that you talked about was they were all born on Christmas. It's a miracle. Anyway,
yeah.
So you were going on to any comment, and then you could go back to Osiris or wherever you were going, because I thought that was just really fascinating.
Well, I have a follow-up book on that because that's a part of solar mythology. That has to do with the winter solstice. And so my next book is called Sons of God, Krishna, Buddha, and Christ Unveiled, because two of the solar myths that were contended to have winter solstice births are Krishna and Buddha as well, but according to, of course, the mainstream, that's entirely incorrect. So I followed up in the researching of that information, and of course, I discovered interesting parts of. First of all, people are misconstruing, in my mind, Krishna and Buddha as being real people too, who actually walked the earth and did all these wild supernatural things. And so if you read Sons of God, you also start discovering, well, these look like solar myths too. And, there's this whole solar mythology with a priesthood that is actually continuing to this day because, indeed, Hinduism is largely solar-based. So, and Buddhism, you find out, but there's a lot of lunar information in Buddhism as well. But you start looking closely at their stories, and you discover a few things that are indicative of this winter solstice rising. For example, Krishna is the incarnation of the god Vishnu, who is clearly a solar myth, and he is depicted as rising at the winter solstice. So we do have a basis for claiming that the rise or the incarnation or the rebirth of Vishnu occurs at the winter solstice. And then within Buddhism, you have the appearance of the Buddha of light, and in fact, you can find this kind of really nitty-gritty, interesting information in my astrotheology calendar, where I delved into the month of December with the winter solstice festivals. Is just absolutely fascinating. So you can also get that astrotheology calendar. Shows all of these different winter solstice celebrations around the world dating back thousands of years. And you really get a perspective of how potent was this mythology and how it's been lost to us. I mean, growing up, I didn't even know what the winter solstice was. It was Christmas time. It was the birth of Jesus. What did it have to do with the sun? And nobody taught us that it's basically the winter solstice. So this has been, it's amazing how they could really wipe out this knowledge that had been so vital to humanity for so many thousands of years. And these other characters, there's a lot about, when I go into the solar mythology and Sons of God, I discuss numerous of these characters like Mithra and Osiris and Asclepius and other gods of the ancient world and their solar attributes. And indeed, I was talking about Osiris having this perpetual death and resurrection going on, just like Christ every year at Easter. In Greece, for example, they yell, Christos Anesti, which means Christ is risen. So every year Christ dies and is resurrected. And this is the same thing that we find in the Egyptian mythology, which I bring out in a very large, dense, scholarly book called Christ in Egypt, that in the Egyptian mythology, you have the baby son, Horus, being born every morning. And, of course, he is also born on December 25th. And, in fact, even in 2,000 years ago or so, Plutarch is talking about how the baby Horus is born at the winter solstice because he's largely a solar god. And so this is where the death and resurrection come in. And if you follow the sun, the yearly annual movements of the sun, you start finding out, well, of course, now we have an Easter celebration where the sun is at the vernal equinox and it's essentially on a cross, and it is it's still overcoming the death of the winter time, and then there's this great victory when the night begins to be, or the day begins to be longer than the night, and so it is said that the sun has risen. The worship on the sun day is another indication of an ancient pre-Christian solar festival, and so on and so forth. So all of these gods, these attributes, when you see that they're resolving into solar myths, then you start understanding why they have so many